Alrighty, everybody. It is 4 p.m., which means it's time to get this show on the road. My name is Max Rombado. I am the legislative director at Raise Your Hand Texas. And before I get into who Raise Your Hand Texas is and what we do, first allow me to say thank you to our esteemed panelists who have taken the time out of their day to have an important conversation about teacher workforce issues and how we can make an impact on teacher workforce in the upcoming legislative session. Also, thank you to all the guests that are attending this event. We are extremely excited to see a large number of people who are interested in learning about teacher workforce challenges and, more importantly, learning from our teachers specifically about these challenges and how do these policies play out in the classroom. As many of you probably already know, this week is Teacher Appreciation Week. So Raise Your Hand Texas wanted to host a conversation about teacher workforce that centered the perspectives of the teachers, the people who often see the policy play out in the classroom, and who often, unfortunately, are left unheard during the legislative sessions when legislators are trying to create policies to affect the classroom. This is an attempt to center teacher voices, learn from our educators, and hopefully take the first steps in crafting policy solutions that truly make an impact on our educators and address a key issue that's not just affecting Texas, but is truly affecting classrooms across the country. So hopefully we are able to show our genuine appreciation for all the great work our panelists do every single day and all the teachers of Texas do every single day through this conversation. But before we get into questions with our panelists, allow me to just go through a few slides that tell you a little bit about Raise Your Hand Texas, and then some key data points about the teacher workforce that we have gathered over the last couple years that'll help set the stage for the questions that we talk about, panelists. So just to kick us off, Raise Your Hand Texas is a nonprofit organization that supports public policy solutions that invests in our students, encourage innovation and autonomy, and improve college workforce readiness. We do this primarily by supporting our teachers, investing in our students, and measuring what matters when it comes to school quality. One of the key data points that we discovered through the Texas Teacher Poll from 2022, this is a poll that was produced by our sister organization, the Charles Butt Foundation, was that 77% of our teachers have considered leaving the profession. But not just that, almost all of those teachers have taken an initial step to actually leave the profession. This could mean that they have looked for new jobs, that they have renewed their resume, that they have sent out the resume, that they have even interviewed for other jobs. So overall, 77% of teachers considering leaving the profession, 93 of them starting to put that foot out the door, really raising the alarm that Texas needs to address teacher workforce issues immediately. We know that as far as teacher retention goes, two key factors that influence whether or not a teacher leaves the classroom is one, the type of education preparation program they went through, and two, how much time they've spent in the classroom. We know that when teachers make it past the 5-year mark of teaching, they're much more likely to stay in the profession than those first 4 initial years of teaching. We also know that educators that go through a for-profit alternative certification program are much more likely to leave the profession early and by a higher amount than teachers that went through traditional university certification programs. And so the real challenge we're seeing here is that we need to make sure that not only are we increasing access to education preparation programs to get teachers in the classroom, but that we're also doing that while maintaining a high quality and high standard of education preparation to get people in the classroom as ready as they can be on day one. We know that across the various retention strategies, teachers mentioned significant salary raises as the key retention strategy that would make the most impact immediately. While these other retention strategies, right, maximizing retirement benefits, improving the teacher schedule, teacher calendars and teacher schedules so that there's more time to teach are all important. We know that the immediate urgency is around teacher pay. And so any strategy to retain teachers in the long run has to address the compensation issue. We know that that's a problem because on average, the Texas teacher makes about 23% less per year than the average college-educated Texan. So it's not fair that educators have to go through the same university, the same degrees, have to go through the same challenges as other college-educated individuals, take out the same loans to be making 23% less than their college-educated peers. So it's no surprise that more than half of Texas teachers have to work a second job. And no, they're not just doing it in the summers when they have off, they're doing it most of the time during the school year. It's becoming more and more difficult to keep doing the profession they love to do and pay the bills, which means they have to look for other jobs to do that. It shows that our teachers really care about the work that they do and they're willing to make key sacrifices in order to stay in the classroom, but that we need to do something to address this challenge immediately. All that being said, during Teacher Appreciation Week, it's important that we think about these data points and learn from our educators and how this translates in the classroom on a day-to-day experience. And so it is my pleasure to get to introduce this wonderful panel of educators who bring more than 53 years of experience in the classroom, who represent a broad swath of geography in Texas, including rural, urban, and suburban school districts, and who also teach at the elementary, the middle school, and the high school level. Let me just say it's an honor to get to talk to y'all. I'm extremely excited for this conversation. Our teacher specialist, Jaleesa Hoover, who has worked really hard to organize this event, has hyped y'all up this whole week. And so I cannot wait to get into these questions and to get to talk to y'all. I do know that time is very precious for our educators, and so I do not want to spend too much time before going into the questions. So I'll quickly just give the audience a quick intro to everybody. And when I say your name, just give a friendly wave so that everyone knows you guys are very nice, friendly, and approachable people. We're going to start with Ernie Moran, who is a Spanish high school teacher in Fort Worth. Say hi, Ernie. We have Laura Marder, a high school biology teacher in Mineola. Hey, Laura. We have Audrey Mayo, a first grade teacher in Killeen. Hey, Audrey. And then we have Latoya Ballard, a behavior services K-5 teacher in Channelview. Hey, Latoya. How's it going, y'all? I'm excited to jump in. So we're just going to go ahead and start with the first question here. This is a question I'd like for each one of you to try to answer if possible. And then as we go through the other questions, I might pick on some of y'all specifically if I haven't heard from y'all or if I feel like the question might be more relevant to your experience. Can you get a thumbs up if we're good with that? All righty, y'all. Question number one is, the past 4 years have seen enormous changes in education due to the COVID-19 pandemic and as a result of new legislation that has passed. From your perspective, how has this particular school year been different? Can we start? On my screen, I have Audrey up first. Is that okay with you, Audrey?
Yes, totally fine.
All right.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting and having me on. I appreciate being invited. For me, as you said, I teach first grade. So I'm seeing a lot of these babies right when they're first starting off on their school journey. So for me, when COVID, as we were talking about kind of right before the webinar began, I was teaching, in 2020, 21, 22. And so many of my students were coming in with little to no schooling, pre-K or kindergarten. And where prior to the COVID pandemic, I very rarely had students who hadn't had a school experience before. So it's definitely become more common following COVID. I think for me, being where I am at the beginning of the journey, most of my students now, I feel like we're kind of coming back to a more normal level with that. I feel like probably some of the middle school and high school may have a different perspective than me, because they probably are still seeing some of those, the lack of knowledge that some of our kids may have. But I feel like for me personally, each year that's passed by, it's starting to feel a little more normal. My kids have gone to pre-K, they've gone to kindergarten, they know how to walk in the hallway and kind of just have some of those early on skills that kids need to have in order to start being successful in school.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are some key challenges that the pandemic definitely presented for our students. And I'm glad we got to talk about that right before the start of that panel. Latoya, you also serve in the K-5 elementary space. I'd love to hear your perspective as well.
I just transferred to the K-5 in October, and I'm seeing similar things happening in the middle school and the elementary school. From what I could see, that there is still a major deficit in reading, especially and particularly in math. And so what I'm saying is that these students need way more interventions and supports in the schools. And, unfortunately, many of those positions, the intervention and support positions, they are being deleted. They're going out the window due to the changes in the new legislation because communities can't afford it anymore. So they're having to revamp this, which is really, it's really a stressful situation because many of the teachers, I mean, it's so overwhelming. Even with the interventions and all of this going on, it seems like we need more, not less. And so, even though the teachers are given 100%, a lot of them go home feeling defeated. That their kids are not meeting grade level expectations, and you see it. You see it in the state testing. The state of Texas, of course, wants everyone to pass the STAR test. Meets. But how can you meet if you don't have the tools and the people available to help our students meet those expectations?
Yeah, definitely. I think you took the words out of my mouth. We're expecting teachers to do more with less, which is creating a particularly difficult challenge in teacher workforce. What y'all are saying are making me think of questions that I want to ask, and I have to be mindful of time. But that also reminds me that we will have a Q&A portion after these questions. So audience members who are tuning in, keep thinking about questions that are coming up in your head as we're going through these questions, and feel free to submit those to us. We'll be excited to share those at the end of this discussion. But moving on to our high school educators, Laura, I'm excited to hear from you. Let me know if you need me to repeat the question.
No, you're good. First of all the educators on the call, thank you for the work that you do every single day. You guys are amazing. Yes, you guys are rock stars, seriously. No, COVID absolutely flipped our world upside down. Teaching post-COVID is 100% different than teaching pre-COVID. And unless you were in the classroom, it's kind of hard to grasp what that looks and feels like. At high school level, we are still seeing gaps, definitely in reading and math. I can agree with that. And I can kind of along the same lines, Latoya, agree with you that the funding that has been cut for us is taking positions away that were our push-in services. They were our wraparound services for these students to help them get caught up and get them where they need to be. And so these teachers are having to really do even more work, 25, 30 kids in the class trying to differentiate for each student in the classroom. And it's definitely been a challenge, and we really need some help to get these kids where they need to be.
Thank you, Laura. And last but certainly not least, Ernie, would love to hear from you about this.
Thank you, Max, and thank you all, my fellow teachers, for doing what you do every day and for being here on this call and lending your perspective and your voice. That's so important. I think, first of all, echoing what Audrey said, I think with each year, I feel readier for the trauma that the students went through. I've recognized it now for several years, and so I'm ready and I'm braced for it, and I feel more prepared for that. But I think there were two issues just and mainly in education, or certainly in education. One is that COVID revealed, it didn't cause, it revealed inequalities that already existed and gaps that already existed, whether it was reliability with internet and Wi-Fi connection, or having a parent at home who could support. All those things were just exacerbated by COVID and having to do online teaching. And then you add the fact that we teachers with no real training in how to be virtual teachers, within a week or two, were just thrust into it and said, okay, here you go, you're this now. And so I think we're seeing the effects of those two things 3-4 years down the line now. And I think it's going to take us a while to get our way out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm reminded of my sister who just started 4 years ago. Her first year was a virtual and in-person combination. And, it's tough what teachers had to go through during that time. And I can't even imagine. Thank you so much, panelists, for your responses for this first question. Some of y'all have already mentioned and kind of led into what we're going to talk about in the second one. So I think this is more geared towards our elementary grade educators. And Latoya, we may start off with you because you kind of hinted at this in your previous response. Way to go. But there have been discussions around how many students are on or below grade level. Teaching is a highly technical profession. Can you explain how you know if a student is at grade level? And Latoya, if we can start with you, that'd be great.
Oh, yes, sir. So it's a combination of things. So one, you're going to look at formative assessments, and you're going to also look at some of those summative assessments. And so when we're talking about summative assessments, we're talking about tests, quizzes, and things that are used to measure the actual student performance. So this is done like at the end of a particular unit or a particular course, and there's a system for calculating that particular grade. Then you have formative assessments, which is you're receiving input from the student. So you're actually understanding what they know. So it's not necessarily you teaching, they regurgitating what you taught them. It's actually them showing some product that they've inputted, and they've computed what they've learned, and they can actually show you something, whether it's being able to write a cohesive piece, whether it's to put together a project, whether it's to present something. Usually with these type of assessments, I give student choice, because I rather they show me what they know rather than me tell them what they need to show me. So that's what I use, formative and summative assessment. So it's a combination of both things, not one or the other.
And there's many ways to do both, as you mentioned too. It really is a complex task to measure student learning and readiness. Audrey, you also are in the elementary levels. I would love to hear from your perspective as well.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with everything that LaToya said. I absolutely do that too, each and every day. And really, like she said, trying to provide choice to the kids, to kind of give them more ownership and buy-in with what they're doing. I kind of thought about this question from a little bit of a different perspective. I was thinking, like, at the end of the year, what do I think of when I think these kids are ready or not for the following grade level? And of course, as a first grade teacher, literacy is huge for me. Big passion of mine, actually. And so even though I'm not currently in a STAR tested grade level where we've got a STAR test to judge something, I'm really digging into those TEKS and really understanding, can they decode these words? Can they write? Can they read and comprehend what is in front of them? So that is very important for me. I want to build a huge foundation, because if they cannot read, if they have gaps in that learning, those gaps are going to widen when they go to second, third, fourth, and so on. And it's because they have new content that's coming in at those grade levels, they're going to continue to have those gaps, and we're not going to fill them. So that is very important for me on the literacy side. And then for math, I'm thinking problem solving. I'm thinking, just place value, and just all of the variety of skills that we teach in first grade. They all seem, I think, very basic, but they are very foundational. And if I'm not doing my job effectively at the first grade level, when they go to second, third, so on, and get all the way up there to Laura and Ernie, they're not going to be able to do all of those other things that they need to do at that more complex level.
Yeah, it's really insightful what you say about digging into the TEKS and really understanding the expectations for students, and then having to translate that into lesson plans. I think that's a part of your work that gets overlooked a lot in like legislative spaces, for instance. The really important thing to remember is our teachers are really working to align the learning goals with key pedagogical practices that truly improve learning. I remember doing the tax test, and we had the ratio word questions, and it was like a pen to a paper is like a blank to a teacup, and the answer was saucer. And like 9-year-old Max, also bilingual, never learned the word saucer in his life. That stuck with me for the rest of my life. There's ways to bringing back some of those memories. I might start to sweat pretty soon. But no, thank you so much. Ernie and Laura, if you guys have anything else to provide to that question, right? How do we measure, student grade level readiness? Feel free to chime in.
Yeah, absolutely. So studies show time and again that the teacher is the most important in-school factor to student learning. And so our high quality educators, they don't just jump in and start teaching content, right? They have to learn their kids. And so like myself personally, like I want to know what makes them tick, right? What are they interested in? I look at previous testing scores, right, that help me, but I also do my own assessments to figure out How are they reading? How do they problem solve? And so I create lessons and differentiate for these students to help meet them where they are and then bring them up to where I feel like they need to be in order to be successful. And our teachers across the state are doing that everywhere. They're awesome.
Awesome. Perfect. Ernie, if you have something to say, please share.
Well, Max, you hinted at what I was going to say here. I taught bilingual elementary education at third and mostly fourth grade level for 11 years. And when you say at grade level, by whose standard and under what rationale? Because if you have a kid who arrives in fifth grade from a Spanish speaking country who's had no exposure to English, and then by sixth grade, by their second year, they can only take a STAR test in English, how realistic is it to expect the same as someone from a monolingual background who has only learned English since they were born, since they were able to speak? And so part of the issue there is how we define on grade level, by what standard, and are we including what a child already knows, perhaps in a different language, at the correct grade level. So I know, I'm sure at some point we'll get into assessments, and I'll have things to say then. So
No, that was a wonderful response. I think the key word here, right? Autonomy, differentiation, personalization. Teachers need to have the flexibility to meet their students' needs and know that each student learns differently. I think that was phenomenal responses to that question. Reminds me, just wanted to remind the audience, we do have a Q&A at the end of this. If you have any questions, if your juices are flowing because of this awesome conversation, please submit your questions. We'd love to get those up on this on the screen after the panel discussion is over. Moving to the third question of the discussion today, what impacts of the last legislative session are you seeing on your schools? Thinking back to the last legislative session, how has this particular school year been impacted since then? I'm going to let this one open for whoever feels or would like to respond right now, and we'll let that naturally build out.
Can start. I think we've heard several things already. Budget cuts, positions being cut has been a popular theme among the conversation already. And of course, the lack of raises and compensating teachers for what they do. I did want to highlight a positive thing that I liked from the 88th Texas legislature was the high quality instructional materials. Like I said, literacy being huge for me, them prioritizing the need to have explicit and direct instruction for phonics for our kids is huge. And so I'm really pleased that they have created a list of, books and companies and all of those curriculums that we can use so that we can effectively teach our kiddos.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have resources at hand and in an organized central fashion so that teachers can pull the resources they need quickly.
I think the biggest thing that we're seeing is just the lack of compensation for teachers. Inflation is crippling everybody, but schools in particular, again, positions being cut, not being able to, do what we used to do as far as extracurriculars, things like that for our students. But recruitment and retention of teachers is a massive problem right now. Before I became a teacher, I worked in the business sector. And if you wanted to hire high quality employees and keep employees around, retention rates, you paid them really well. You gave them great benefits, great insurance, and you took care of your people. And so I think if we're going to curb this issue of 70%, 77% of our teachers leaving, that's a huge wake-up call. We've got to start paying them appropriately and giving them proper insurance and take care of them, because they take care of the 5.5 million kids in the state every single day and provide them with a high quality education. It's about time we take care of them.
Absolutely. And every business professional that you work with, I'm sure, can point back to a teacher that made had a huge difference in their life too. So great point.
I'll echo what my colleagues have already said. The failure to pass teacher pay raises and school funding in this last session is a failure that we are seeing the effects of every single day. It's that time of year. I'm watching colleagues head out the door, good quality teachers headed out the door. We've got high turnovers. We've got a lot of people retiring. And as they're headed out the door, I hear them say, it's not going to get better. And who could argue with the messaging we're getting from Austin, with the lack of action? I'm in no place to say, oh, wait. There's signs it's going to get better. 4 special sessions and nothing got done. Then I can't fault them. I really can't. It's disheartening. And I hear you, Audrey. There was one positive that did come out of the session with regards to curriculum, but districts everywhere are slashing budgets. They're closing schools, and we know that the legislature is sitting on about $30 billion of money. That's it, and they're sitting on it. It's not going anywhere. It's not moving, and it's not helping us.
Okay, I think I can end this. I'm a statistics person, so I like numbers to kind of put things into perspective for me. So I did a little research, and for my research, there has been no increase in the basic allotment per student, which is crazy because the cost of running any particular school is up by 19%. And that's anywhere from providing supplies, utilities, and just basic operational expenses. And so these schools are already having to, take all these shortcuts just to meet these basic needs on top of, not having enough resources to, pay the salaries of these teachers and having to reformat the way that they're going to do things. And basically, a lot of us teachers are going to have double duty. Pretty much, we're doing 2-for-1 job. So without a pay raise, okay. And then special education, which is near and dear to my heart. So I have to speak on that. So I'm with Mr. Moran. Why are they holding on to this money? What is the purpose for holding on to these funds when there's a $2.3 billion shortfall with just special education? And special education students are on the rise. There's more and more being, segue into special education. So, it's more than just our salaries. The cuts are also directly impacting the students. Yes, it hurts. It hurts that we feel like we're not getting paid what we're worth. We're degreed people. We have to pay for those degrees. We have to work hard for those degrees. And yes, we should be compensated, but what about the kids? So, we're one thing, but what about them? And these cuts are directly affecting them as well.
I have to say that gave me goosebumps. I think that in a conversation about supporting teachers, to pivot and talk about the kids is incredible, and just a testament to why we need to lean on teachers for their perspectives and listen to y'all about these problems, because y'all have insight like this, right? I think it was a shocker during the legislative session when we heard about the $2.3 billion shortfall in special education funding needs. And a lot of that goes just to identify, evaluate, and then provide the education plans for those students. And without those funds, we can't meet the needs of these kids, right? And so I think it's a very, very important point to bring up, Latoya. Thank you for that. Moving on to the 4th question today. According to the Charles Butt Foundation teacher poll, the one that I mentioned earlier in our presentation, about 2/3 of teachers have seriously considered leaving the profession. Over 90% of those have taken a step to do so. As someone who is in the classroom and has worked with many teachers, what could the Texas legislature do to help keep you and teachers like you in the profession? What are some of those key things that you think the Texas legislature really needs to focus on this time around? I'm gonna pick on Laura.
Sounds good. Okay. Listen, every Texas student deserves a teacher who's not only high quality, but is fairly compensated and appreciated for what they do. The Texas legislature can help us significantly by raising the basic allotment so our schools can fund these wraparound services for our kids, keep the lights on, provide enough staffing for our kids, so they're getting the quality education that they deserve. because we not only have a moral, but a constitutional obligation to take care of our kids. And regardless of if we get vouchers one day, okay, the majority of Texas kids are still going to be sitting in public schools. We still have to address our public schools and take care of them. That's our job. And so we've got to find a way to fix the financial downfall that we're sitting in there. But also we've got to pay our teachers fairly, so that way they don't have to worry about working a second job. They don't have to worry about having a stressful day at school, coming home, and now we have bills sitting on the counter that we can't pay. We've got to take care of them so we can recruit and retain high quality people.
Audrey, would you like
I'll
to
go
share?
next.
Oh, perfect.
Go ahead.
I'll go next. Yes, we definitely need a teacher salary increase for sure. And let me just kind of explain that. It's not because we're greedy or we're trying to get rich, educating today's youth. We have real world problems. And let me enlighten you. I spend a good chunk of my day trying to go through different options so I could get an additional loan to finish paying for my master's degree. I have 2 additional classes that were not covered that I have to finish this summer. Then I just learned that I got accepted for my doctorate's degree. So where is this money coming from? I have no idea, because guess what? I have a teacher salary and I have a child that's in college. And so where is this supposed to come from? I think I work pretty hard as a teacher, and I think I bring a lot to my school and my community. Why is it that I can't get an increase in my salary so I can get the best education to afford the children the best education? Just because they're in public school doesn't mean that they don't deserve the best education, right? Classroom autonomy. How many times are we in shambles because TEA, and we have to, get it together. They keep us on our toes, which is nothing wrong with that, because if you can do your job, you're going to do it, right? So I'm never worried about that. But teachers should have a little bit more classroom autonomy, meaning we're always teaching to the test. We're always teaching to the star, dealing with these deficits and trying to, meet the quota and meet the standards that are set forth by the state, who are actually not in the classrooms to see what we have to deal with day in and day out. Okay. And I also feel that there needs to be more advocating for teachers. Plain and simple. Do you know how many teachers do not feel supported? That's why they're leaving. And at the very beginning, Max gave some very interesting statistics on his slideshow. I'm the outlier in every single one, and I've been teaching for 11 years. And I went through Texas teachers. I do not have a degree in education. I have a psychology degree. So I was supposed to quit a long time ago, but guess what? I'm still in it. So advocate for me. Advocate for people like me, that we're in it because we love the kids and we want to teach them. We want what's best for them. Also, there needs to be the TEA or the legislator. You guys need to listen and respect our opinions when you are setting these policies, because it affects all of us. It affects a whole community of people, right? It's just not a few. It's a whole community of people, and and with that, I feel that quit cutting the funding, please. We need support staff. We need the supplies. We need everything. Like we can't afford any more cuts. If anything, we need extra. So I'll get off my soapbox, but that's how I feel.
No, thank you so much for your perspective. First of all, congratulations on getting accepted to a PhD program. I think that's phenomenal, and it clearly shows that you're going to rock it, and the world will benefit from your educational experience. So thank you for your perspective, Latoya. Similarly, we're going to move on to the next question, which is related. What can the legislature do to improve student outcomes? And if I can add some nuance here, I'm interested to know what student outcomes means to you, and then how the Texas legislature what can the Texas legislature do to improve that? Audrey, would you like to go?
Yeah, I would love to go. I was going to just touch on, if I could add on really quickly to what Latoya said, I'm sorry, was that with mental health support would be huge. This isn't an area that I struggle with, but I was enlightened recently, having attended a little seminar with Dr. Adam Sines, and he spoke about how important it was for our educators to be well.
Mm.
All areas of wellness, spiritual, financial, all of the ways. And that if we will help, if we can have resources that can help us to be well, then we can support our students adequately, not only academically, but we will be able to support them through all of the social and emotional situations that they come to us with. And honestly, that's number one. We have to support them that way in order for them to respect us and want to listen to us and learn from us finally. So it's so important. If they can do something with regard to helping teachers in that aspect, I think that would help to retain. As far as the question that you just asked, we need to involve parents. And I honestly don't know what the best solution for that is, but we've got to have involvement from our families. And I think that would benefit our student outcomes. That would help them in all aspects, behaviorally, socially, academically. I firmly believe that if we can involve our families, I feel like many are very disconnected from what's going on in school, how they can be of assistance. It's not like you got to go home and do 3 hours worth of homework every evening in order to be an involved parent. But I think if we can really encourage our families to be invested in their children and invested in what's happening in our schools, I think that will definitely positively support outcomes for our kids.
Yeah, I love the perspective. Someone else earlier, I might have been Laura, brought up the conversation about wraparound services, that this approach is holistic. It's not just instruction, it's mental health, it's nutrition, right? It's exercise, it's a ton of things. And it's also about family engagement and getting everyone in the school, in the student's life involved as much as possible. That's great perspective, Audrey.
Max,
Ernie, yes.
because I hate to back it up a little bit. I just wanted to piggyback. No offense to your question or to Laura, Latoya, and Audrey's answers. But the fact is, as far as what keeps us coming back, what keeps us in the profession, the legislature already has that answer. 2 years ago, the governor created a task force about teacher vacancies and why there were so many. And first of all, it was kind of ironic that they created a teacher vacancy task force that had no teachers on the task force. They finally added a few, and then they got the report and did next to nothing addressing it. The only thing that addressed it was what Audrey mentioned, was the curriculum. But the number one thing on there was compensation. And they talked about teacher working conditions. And it mentioned so many things that were actionable. And the legislature absolutely dropped the ball. So I just wanted to touch on that. They already have the answer. They don't have to ask us anymore. They just got to go do it. As far as student outcomes, I'm fortunate enough, I happen to serve on a superintendent's teacher advisory committee. And we just actually met yesterday. And we touched on this very thing. Let's measure what matters. Let's actually create well-rounded individuals. And you don't just get that from a book or from a test. Forbes magazine did an article in 2019 about all these, what we call soft skills, right? That it sounds a lot like what we came up with just this other day about what we'd like the goals to be for where we want our kids to be. Things like empathy, things like emotional intelligence and curiosity, things like learning to be an active listener, learning to build relationships, humility. All those kinds of skills would benefit them no matter what they choose after 12, 13 years in public schools. And so if we shifted the conversation and got to what really matters, then aim for that target, I think that would go a long way towards bettering Texas, period.
Absolutely, and I'm excited that you brought up the teacher vacancy task force. The legislature did a lot of work leading up to the session 2 years ago to really put together some comprehensive plans to address not just the teacher workforce issue, but they did one for special education funding too that really brought to light some of the challenges and how to move forward on special education funding. So there's a lot already put together, like you said, Ernie, for us to first remember, because these things get put to the wayside after a couple of years, and it's important to bring these back into the conversation, knowing that this work has been done already. So I appreciate you bringing that back up to light. For the following question, and we're gonna go through this one, and then we'll start our Q&A shortly. So get your questions ready. I see that the Q&A box has been lighting up, which is really exciting. And so for the final question here, I want to hear from y'all about the way you're feeling about next school year. How does next school year look like to you? How do you feel about it? Yeah, and if we can start, I kind of want to let y'all answer this when y'all are ready.
I can start. I think right now, I'm tired right now. Tired is the word that comes to mind, right? I'm tired right now. This year has been very fast paced. I feel like I've been at this is my 18th year, and I feel like this is maybe one of the most stressed out years I've had, and I'm not really a stressed out person. So this has been just a tough year. But always at the end of the year, there's always the hope for the next year. I'm going to do a little summer school in summer and enrichment and have a good time with that. And by the time July comes, my brain's going to start thinking about what am I going to do in my classroom and what can my classroom look like, and kind of get it that beginning of year excitement. So right now I'm tired. I need to rest a little bit and recharge, and then be ready in August again.
I'm personally really excited. In small rural towns, it's not just the school as a standalone entity. We have a lot of parent involvement, a lot of community involvement. And so at least on the small town scale, our teachers are still praised as heroes and very important. And I know personally, like the future of Texas is sitting in my classroom right now. And so I'm excited. I've already started meeting my kids for next year, and we grow them collectively. It's not just the teacher standalone. And so even though we're not getting the help we need from Austin, we do the best we can with the resources that we have. And we're still praying that the folks in Austin will do the right thing so we can keep moving forward and keep doing great things with our kids.
Okay, I'll go next. My answer is kind of twofold because it kind of piggybacks off the preceding question. So what could the Texas legislator do to improve the student outcomes is definitely going to take a place. It's going to affect the way I feel about the upcoming year, which is a lot of uncertainty. And it's about what Mr. Moran said about that, instilling that empathy, right? And so my psychology brain at work as usual, the empathy has to start from the very top. From the very top. So, the Texas legislator needs to show us a little empathy, our administrators, the teachers to the students, so on and so forth. But if you got everybody stressing out, wondering where these funds are going to come from, how we're going to make this work, our workload is doubled. That to me, and I appreciate all the positivity coming from everybody. And of course, when you tackle anything that's worth tackling, especially when it comes to educating and being a positive example to the kids, of course, you want to go in that wholeheartedly. But realistically, let's be realistic. We just talked about mental health, right? Burnout is real. You're going to see a whole lot more of that this coming year. Why? Because we're doing the job of 2 and 3 people. Because why? There's less teachers. You have people that have earned their way into administrative positions. They've been in education 20 plus years. And I've seen it. They've lost their positions, and guess where they're going? Right back into the classroom. You have people who have worked their way up to being instructional coaches. Curriculum specialists, guess where they're going? Right back into the classroom. So for me, how I'm feeling about the next school year, I feel there is going to be a shift in the mood, which is it's going to impact the kids too. Should it? No, it shouldn't, but we're human beings too, right? And so realistically, it can go either way. I mean, I'm a positive person. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a positive person. When my kids come into the room, and I deal with behavior kids, okay? So when they come into the room, it's always pleasantries and positivity. You know, that's what I teach all day, every day. But realistically, all of these things are going to affect the way that we feel and the way that our students feel in the coming school year.
All right, I guess I'll go. I'll be short and sweet. I like to cite a friend of mine often cites when we talk about these turbulent times and these crazy times we're living in. He cites a French author, Francois de la Rochefoucauld, and says, hope is the last thing that dies in man. And so I keep hearing hope, and I think that's it. That's if we weren't hopeful, we'd quit, right? That's what keeps us coming back. Is I'm hopeful the next year will get better, that the next year this will fire off, this will go, this will get passed in Austin, these funds will be released, this program will start to take off and show fruit. It's always, okay, what worked, what can I build on, and how can next year be better? And so it's just hope. That's what keeps you coming back.
No, yeah, I love that answer. I love the collective answer here where it's like, yes, there's challenges. Yes, it's getting harder. We cannot lose sight of that, but also there's so much magic and so much greatness happening in the classrooms every day. Despite that, that's not an excuse to ignore the problems that are happening, but it's happening nonetheless, which I think is awesome to see that y'all are so capable of demonstrating that just from a Zoom conversation. And so thank y'all so much for the hope you bring into the classroom. Thank you so much for the great work that you do. And thank you so much for sharing your perspective and your insight. There are a lot of people listening to this conversation that I think are taking a lot from what you're providing. And that's exactly what needs to happen so that the folks over here behind me can really start to listen and make change that matters to y'all and that matters to the student. Latoya, you made a great point. We did a presentation to students not too long ago, and it was incredible how they all resonated with one student's comments about teachers who go into the classroom and aren't invested. Like they feel it and it changes the environment, the mood immediately. And so, you know, we need to work harder at the state legislature to make sure that our teachers have everything they need to invest in our kids and shine bright for them. All right, with that said, we're going to get into the Q&A section. I'm going to ask the questions. Apologies for looking off to the left. I'm reading them out from another. I have like the Bruce Wayne computer screen set up right here. So I'm going to start asking some questions from the audience and try to get these out to y'all before time. We have about 10 minutes. So I also recommend y'all to, as much as possible, keep your answers brief. The first one is a fun one to start. It's Teacher Appreciation Week, right? So what's the best gift for teachers? What do you think is a really good gift to give a teacher during Teacher Appreciation Week?
My very favorite thing that I've gotten is one of our teachers every year gets all the kids to write letters to their teachers, like why you're great and why they love you. And some of them are anonymous and some of them are signed, but it is the best gift by far every year to hear that kids that you didn't think that maybe you reached, like you made a huge impact on their life. And I hang them up every year. It's what keeps me going.
That's awesome.
I love the notes too. They're so sweet. I got one today from, I didn't even teach this kid, but I teach his brother right now. And he's in 3rd grade. And he said, thanks for teaching my brother.
Wow.
That was so sweet. Can I give a shout out to our school PTO? I'm at Skipshaw Elementary. I'm not afraid to say that. They're amazing. They have spoiled us this week. I know not everybody has that, and I'm so blessed, but they have been absolutely wonderful. We've got breakfast and lunch and snacks and gifts all week. So they've been super wonderful.
Awesome.
My favorite thing is simply this, and I get it every day, to be honest. I could do without all the sweets and all that stuff because it's too much. But just my students hugging me. Like every time they see me and I walk the hall and they're glad to see me, hey, Miss Ballard, and give me a hug, that's enough for me. Just to see them smiling and see them in a positive light, teaching them things like saying good morning. When that kid that would never speak and they just say, good morning, Miss B. That's appreciate that. I appreciate that. That's enough for me.
That's awesome. Ernie.
Yeah, that's it. It's the kids' feedback when it's honest, when it's genuine, when it's spontaneous. Even no offense, Laura. I love that the teachers are giving each other that love and showing each other that love. I get some of that. I had a colleague who had their students write a Teacher of the Year letter who they thought should be Teacher of the Year, and I got that from a couple of kids. But just yeah, the spontaneous note that a kid just slips to you, leaves on your desk or something when you're not looking, and it, like I said, it's from the one that you least expect. Those. You store them away for that day when you're feeling down and you just happen to open that drawer and there they are, and it gets you going again.
Ernie, you sure it's not when one of your players scores a goal during one of the matches?
That's appreciated too, for sure. When but you gotta think I'm lying or it's just for the Zoom. I tell them I honestly, I'm more proud of the emails I send out when they're on the honor roll than anything on the field. So
that's awesome. Moving on to the second question, and Ernie, we'll start with you because you mentioned this in one of your responses, but regarding the impact of pandemic-related trauma, do we fully understand the characteristics of these traumas and their effects on students' learning capabilities? Additionally, are there specific trauma-informed practices that educators can implement in the classroom to address the challenges presented by the pandemic trauma? What are some of those specific skills you get to use?
wow, that's a lot. I would say
Easy one, yeah.
Yeah, sure. First of all, I think part of the problem is we can't even agree on what traumas were suffered, right? What did the kids go through? Some will tell you, oh, we teachers got, 4 months to just hang out at home with our kids and things like that. And their kids lost loved ones. They lost family members. They lost caregivers. And so not even getting into the basics. I think I saw somebody in the chat ask a question also about food insecurity and things like that. And all of this got exposed. You had kids who wouldn't turn their cameras on because they didn't want their peers to see what was going on in their home, and who could blame them? And so I think part of the problem is that, and then part of the problem is this is still so new. We're not yet certain of the lasting impacts of the traumas, physical or otherwise. And we teachers then haven't been trained and equipped. We're using the same old trauma-informed responses for new traumas. And so I think it's going to be a while before we get those things leveled off like they should be.
Anyone else, feel free to chime in if you have a response.
I've seen an increase of more students with OCD tendencies as well. There are several students at the school where I am that will have a complete meltdown if you take off their mask. And you don't even see a lot of students really wearing their mask anymore. And there are also several of them that do extreme hand washing. And when you ask them about that, of course, it's been instilled in them at such a young age, through the pandemic. You got to have clean hands. You got to cover your face. They're having a hard time breaking it to understand that, hey, it's different right now. Yeah, there are germs, but it's not as drastic as it was, 3-4 years ago. But I see more and more of that behavior.
If it's all right, we're gonna move on to another one. We're trying to get as many Q&A questions in as possible before time is up. The following question, this is for anyone to answer. What message do you have for young adults who are on the fence about becoming a teacher and are grappling with entering the profession because of teachers feeling overworked, undervalued, and dealing with the compensation challenges?
I can start on this one. I feel like I wouldn't go to a hospital and expect to be a doctor one day, right? Like tomorrow, I'm not going to do surgery on somebody. I feel like I would say to them, really consider that this is a profession you want to be in. Those children depend upon you. You need to be there. You can't be in and out. And don't just go into it because it's there. because there's some prep program you can sign up for $100 and be a teacher the next day. Don't get into it for that reason. Get into it because you're passionate about kids, and you're passionate about seeing the growth and seeing those light bulbs come on when they finally figure something out. Really make sure it's what you want to do. Because people are leaving mid-year, they're leaving after a month or two, and that impacts kids. And so I would just say, make sure that's what you want to do before just saying, yeah, that's me.
Wonderful. Laura, could I pick on you for an answer?
Of course. Yeah. So teachers are lifelong learners. Okay. So if you want to get into this profession, you have to have passion. Okay. You can't expect to walk in, like she said, the first day and be an amazing teacher. It's something that every year we learn and grow, and we become better at it with each passing year and each group of kids. And I agree. I mean, you have to love kids. That's a good start, but you also have to be very dedicated and very driven and want to learn and want to be better and be very coachable in this career, because times change quickly, situations change quickly. And so you have to be very adaptable. And it's so much more than just walking in the classroom and teaching your content. That's awesome. You need to be an expert in your content, but you truly have to reach kids on that social, emotional level, and you are their guide through the year. And in life, I mean, most of my families, I see them out in town, and, like it's relationships that you build, and it's awesome. And there's no other profession like it, but it takes a very special, dedicated person to do a great job in the classroom.
Awesome, y'all. I really appreciate all of the answers you provided. I feel like I've squeezed all the brain juice I could out of y'all. I do want to leave us on one last question for y'all to answer. I would like for each one of you to provide an answer to the best of your ability, but it's really just, what is the one takeaway each of you would like to convey to the audience before we close? Ernie, if we could start with you, that'd be awesome.
Oh man, okay. One takeaway is that we can't keep asking schools to solve societal problems that arrive at our doorstep, that are affecting us every single day. Everybody in society needs to do their part, whether it's hunger, whether it's gun violence, whether it's mental health. All those things, they reveal themselves in the classroom, but we can't be asked to solve them on top of what we're already asked to do. We need everybody. We need all hands on deck. We need everybody doing what they can. One of my favorite DJs here on the public radio music station, I'm very fond of her saying, if you're doing the best you can, you're doing great. I need everybody doing the best they can. If you're doing the best you can, you're doing great. And then I can do the best I can for the kids.
Wonderful response, Ernie. LaToya, I would love to hear from you.
The only thing I really have to say is, please don't dismiss what's been said here and the points that have been made here today. Don't let it go in one ear and out the other. Really take to heart that, we're people just like you. We have families, we have real life problems, we have responsibilities, and we're preparing the future generations. And so when you make decisions that affects, people that work in education, please consider the overall picture and what some of those ramifications would be, if you make the wrong decision. So just think carefully through things, and just, realize there are real people at the other end of your decisions. And so let's try to make the best decisions that are, not just serving us, but serving our students as well.
Thank you, LaToya. Laura?
I think the most critical piece of improving student outcomes and growing our kids from where they are now is going to begin with a high quality teacher in front of them in the classroom every day. We have work to do to make that happen, to recruit and retain high quality instructors. But the strength of Texas public education as a whole is going to hinge upon the investments that we make in our educators today.
Awesome. And Audrey?
I thought everything you guys said was absolutely amazing. I agree with all of that. And I just encourage anybody who's listening, like they said, listen. I agree so much with what Ernie said. We can't solve all of these problems. We need the help. we need your help to help us do that. And I'm willing to do just about whatever it takes in the classroom to support my kids and to see them grow, not only academically, but socially and behaviorally. And please take the things that we've said today to heart, and not for personal gain or for personal agendas. You know, when you're in those offices, think about how those decisions truly impact us, the real people in the classrooms doing this job every day with truly raising our society.
Thank y'all so much for the insight, the input. Thank you so much for sharing your teacher voice with us. I want to remind the audience, we know that there were so many questions put into the Q&A that were left unanswered. And just there's an opportunity to continue engaging with us beyond this panel. And the best way to do that is to connect with us online. I'm going to pull up the slide deck that has the QR code. Feel free to scan this QR code. It'll take you to our Get Engaged page where you can connect to our newsletter, to connect with some of our regional advocacy directors. Raise Your Hand Texas has advocacy directors that are constantly centering teacher voice and constantly working with their community to raise awareness around public education issues, and are always excited to talk to more people in their neighborhood. And there's other things you can do on this website too to keep engaging with us, keep sharing your perspectives with us. Raise Your Hand Texas is committed to learning about the education space through our teachers, and we'll keep doing this work throughout every legislative session, because we know that the future of Texas is in our public schools, and our future shines brighter when our teachers shine bright. And so thank you again. The only other kind of reminder I want to make real quick is one thing you can totally do and prepare for is both the runoff election in May 28th. Remember that you have a runoff election May 28th. Keep track of who's in your district, who's running for office specifically in the state legislature, but also locally. And then don't forget November general elections. You know, we're in a presidential election this year. Keep track of that as well as we move forward through the year. Who you vote for will have an impact on our public schools. And so don't forget that your vote is related and affects our schools too. And so with that said, panelists, thank you.